All right, let me know when everyone's ready. Good morning. Everyone's right? Okay. Well, good morning, Queensland, and good morning, Cairns. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. And of course, in more good news for Queensland, I can announce that we have only had one case in hotel quarantine of COVID overnight. So once again, really good news. And our test results are up from yesterday. So we had 6,200 tests over the last 24 hours. So once again, that's great news. And of course, as Dr. Young said, if anyone does have any symptoms, please go and get tested. It's absolutely crucial. Any symptoms whatsoever, go and get tested. And we're going to keep those testing rates up. Well, I can also announce today, in further good news, Dr. Young advised me late last night, in discussions also with the Health Minister, Yvette Darke, that the New South Wales residents are now all welcome back into Queensland 1 a.m. on the 1st of February. This is wonderful news. Just yesterday, I had the great opportunity of sitting down with a range of tourism operators here in Cairns, and we've got Mark and Ken here, and also to Minister Sterling Hinchcliffe and Assistant Minister Michael Healy and Minister Craig Crawford. And we sat down and we spoke to the operators. Now, over the Christmas holidays, there has been an increase of people coming to Cairns, which has been wonderful. But of course, we know that a lot of operators up here are doing it tough, and especially with JobKeeper ending at the end of March. I honestly think there is a case to be made to the federal government that perhaps Scott Morrison and the federal government could look at those industries that are doing it tough, and maybe JobKeeper does need to be extended for those industries. We know in other industries they have bounced back after COVID, and some industries are doing a lot better than others. But we do know that the tourism industry is hurting, especially those regions which relied heavily on international travellers. Now, Queensland spends about $12 billion a year. So Queensland is going overseas. That's not happening. I want Queenslanders to get out and about and explore Queensland. If your family has not been up to the Great Barrier Reef, this year is the perfect opportunity. There is so much to do here, from the Atherton Tablelands to the Daintree and all of the towns in between. You'll be met with friendly faces and friendly smiles. But of course, we know how important that New South Wales market is as well. So for those viewers that are currently in Sydney and you're looking for an escape, well, there's no better place to come than the tropical far north, where I think it's about 28 degrees at the moment, and it's just after 9 o'clock. But obviously there's so much to do, and we want to showcase to the rest of Australia what there is up here for you to experience. So, look, great news. I know it's been very tough on families, especially with the closure of the Greater Sydney area. But now's the time for families and friends to be reunited. The 1st of February gives some certainty around planning, and of course it also means that you will not need a border declaration pass to come here. New South Wales residents that would be in quarantine are able to be released on the 1st of February as well, which is great news. But also too, I want to see families and friends reunited. So wonderful news today that has been able to occur. Well, I'm going to hand over to our Minister to say a few words, and then Craig and Michael, and we'll hear from Mark and Ken. Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Premier. And it is great news to see the border being reopened to New South Wales, including Greater Sydney. This is a great boon for the tourism industry right across Queensland, but particularly here in the tropical far north. It was an excellent opportunity, as the Premier's made mention of, to sit down yesterday with people from across the industry, the tourism industry here in tropical North Queensland, here in Cairns, to hear from them about the impacts and the challenges that they've been experiencing as a consequence of the pandemic, and all of those impacts, both border-wise and economically, that have damaged and made challenges for their industry. But there's a really positive and capable group of people who are taking on these challenges head-on, and I'm really positive about the future and the way in which we can continue to work with them to support them going forward. I will make a further comment about the JobKeeper that the Premier's made mention of. JobKeeper, when it was brought in by the federal government, was a very, very useful tool, a very blunt force tool, but one that made a massive difference right across our economy and our community. But as we move forward, I think it's very important that the federal government pick up tools that are maybe a bit more finer grained, that they're a bit more sharp in how they respond to the needs of the economy, and in particular industries like the tourism industry, and in particular in those internationally exposed tourism spots like tropical North Queensland and the Whitsundays. I'd encourage Scott Morrison and the federal government, including Dan Tehan, the Tourism Minister, to work closely with us and with the tourism industry here in Queensland to respond to the needs as we go forward and maintain the great tourism industry that we have here, that people are very much welcome to enjoy. Great assets, great experiences, great opportunities here in the tropical north.
Thanks very much, Minister. Good morning, Premier. Great to have you up here. Ladies and gentlemen, Cairns is open, and it's terrific news in relation to what's happening with the borders in New South Wales. And this will see, not just here in Cairns, which Mark Olsen will talk about, but across our state, marketing initiatives will begin to attract our southern cousins and sisters and brothers, bringing them back, and also from a family perspective, as the Premier touched on. We had a very positive meeting with some concerned representatives of our tourism industry, covering the accommodation, the reef, day touring, a wide range of segments within this industry. Cairns has been a very popular destination for the international market, as we've heard this morning. We have seen significant investment by offshore companies to ensure that we continue to attract. In the absence of the JobKeeper, it is enormously concerning. I've been in the tourism industry for 35 years, and I remember when Scott Morrison was cutting his teeth in the marketing role at Tourism Australia, and he came up with the campaign, "Where the bloody hell are you?" My question to Warren Entsch and to Scott Morrison at a time of great need is, where the bloody hell are you?
Thanks very much, Premier. So, as Michael and I, as local MPs up here, we live in this wonderful paradise, and right now you cannot travel overseas to places like Bali and Thailand and other tropical holiday destinations, but you can come here. And Cairns, as you've heard, is very much open for business. Our operators, our hotel stock, our employees are at work, and they want to be able to show all of Australia what we have here. So whether it's a couple of days or a couple of weeks, Cairns is very much open for business, and I would implore everyone to jump online and start booking that getaway right now, particularly if you are from Greater Sydney. You've done it very tough down there. I think you deserve a couple of days off. Why not come up here? I want to support the calls around JobKeeper. We know that some industries across the country have done very well and they've bounced back, and the federal government obviously has seen that. But tourism, and particularly tourism here in Cairns, still very much needs the Commonwealth support. I would very much support the calls from my colleagues for the federal government to have another look at JobKeeper and the tourism industry, and particularly in places like Cairns.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ken Chapman, Chairman of Tourism Tropical North Queensland. I'd really like to thank the Premier and the Minister for Tourism in particular for coming up and talking to the industry over the last couple of days. We're coming into a really tough time for tourism in this part of the world. Normally, Chinese New Year in 2 weeks, we'd be busy as busy, but not this year. This year, now that the schools have gone back, it's pretty quiet. If you've got a chance to have a holiday, come on up. We'd love to see you. But in the meantime, we're going to need some help over the next few months. It's going to be tough. It's certainly not the time that we'd like to see the federal support from JobKeeper ending. If that does happen, that's really going to be very, very difficult for this part of the world. And at a state level, I think the industry made a lot of suggestions to the Premier and the Minister yesterday, a very good reception, which we really appreciate, and we look forward to working with them to help this part of the world get through what's going to be a tough few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. Really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. So, guys, you know that the industry here in tropical North Queensland has been facing a crisis of confidence. A region losing more than $7 million every day since March needs a boost. and the Premier today has announced the reopening of New South Wales. They will inject an extra $1 million a day into our region. It's a really good start. The conversation with the Premier and with the Minister yesterday, and with the support of Michael Healy, highlighted the importance of jobs. We support 1 in 5 jobs in our community, and thousands of those jobs are at risk at the moment until the numbers return and without JobKeeper being extended beyond March. So we really welcome the support from the Premier and the Minister for the call to the federal government to extend JobKeeper. For those in Greater Sydney, you've been hitting our webpage more than ever before. The growing interest has put Cairns as the 3rd most Googled destination in Australia, and now's your opportunity to convert all that interest into the holiday of a lifetime here in Cairns and the Great Barrier Reef. We would normally be welcoming more than 3,500 international visitors a day at this time of the year, so we need to drive demand. That demand will start with those $58 billion worth of Australian dollars that normally go overseas, spending that here in Cairns and the Great Barrier Reef. The Premier and the Minister heard yesterday from the industry some of the fantastic ways that we can drive that demand, the importance of the aviation sector in allowing visitors to get here. So 88% of our interstate visitors come here through the Cairns airport. So it's great to see the Premier and the Minister and all of the support from the local members recognising what an important role tourism plays. We are facing a crisis of confidence. Today is a really good start. The next 3 months are absolutely vital to our region, and we look forward to seeing the Premier and the Minister back again in the not-too-distant future, hopefully to announce some even more great support for our region when we need it most. Thanks very much. Thank you, Premier.
Thanks, Mark. We're happy to take some questions on this first, and then we'll move on to other matters.
What support is the state looking at after JobKeeper ends?
Well, I think we really need the federal government to think about extending JobKeeper for these industries that are doing it tough. There's about, from memory, around 10,000 businesses here in the tropical north that are on JobKeeper at the moment, and that's going to have a huge impact on employment, especially when JobKeeper ends at the end of March. So, look, we understand a lot of businesses are back on their feet, but there are some industries that aren't. So what we're asking for is a helping hand during this hour of need.
Some of the operators we spoke to yesterday said that they wanted a more greater consensus from all the states on managing hotspots just to give travel a bit more confidence. What do you see as the biggest barrier to achieving?
Yeah, well, I spoke to the people who attended yesterday at length, and one of the things I mentioned was when we declared that Greater Brisbane region, I actually asked National Cabinet because we were declaring it a hotspot for everyone else to declare it a hotspot, which is basically what everyone else did. We have to be very vigilant at the moment in terms of the UK variant strain of COVID. We are very concerned about that. But other than that, I think you'll see a lot more collective response from premiers and first ministers to try and get this right. I really do. And as we've seen, the hotspot program has been working quite well.
Premier, how significant will this reopening be for the Cairns tourism industry?
It's going to be phenomenal. I honestly do believe that there's going to be a lot of people in that Greater Sydney region that want to come back and see family and friends. And there's a lot of people who haven't actually been up to Cairns in the tropical north, and also the Whitsundays. We can't forget the Whitsundays. The Whitsundays is doing it tough as well. So I honestly think there's great opportunities. Hop on, Google, check out everything that Cairns and the Whitsundays has to offer, and you'll find something there for everyone.
How critical aviation support
Yes.
sector's recovery? One thing Virgin will scrap
Well, we are, of course, always concerned about job losses, but what we have seen with Qantas is that the Brisbane to Cairns route is one of the busiest in the country. So let's get that Sydney to Cairns happening again, and of course we want to welcome more Victorians up here as well. So I think now's a good time that people can actually put in place some travel plans. We've got very strict quarantine that's happening at the moment. So I just think now is a great opportunity to start making those plans, especially around the Easter holidays.
Disappointing though that Virgin is losing jobs after that lengthy administration process.
Look, it is always sad when that happens, but when you have a private company that takes over, they're decisions that they make to make sure that their business is sustainable.
Premier, I'm from
Yeah.
Byron from the Cairns Question for a mail. I've got
Yes.
an unrelated question.
Let's just see if there's any more questions,
One more from me as well. What would
local
prompt
questions.
what would prompt the borders to be closed again?
Well, I think everyone would know that if there was an outbreak of that UK variant strain, I think like we did in Greater Brisbane, where we had to shut down immediately. But fingers crossed, that won't happen.
Given in New South Wales and then you had 10 days of zero community transmission, why have you changed the rules again and ignored your previous?
No, we haven't ignored the rules at all. And in fact, Dr Young is very confident that she's had discussions with the Chief Health Officer in New South Wales, and those cases can be related back to those original clusters. So she is very confident that the 28 days has been met.
Premier, the alleged
Yes.
offender in the Alexandra Hills double fatality was allegedly out on bail on unrelated offences. Does that concern you?
Look, as I said yesterday, what happened to Kate and Matthew is an absolute tragedy. No one should go out for a walk and not return home. I mean, this has affected everybody. Everyone goes out for a walk with their family or friends. It's horrific, and we want answers. The family wants answers, the community wants answers, and I want answers.
Premier, do you think the bail laws need to be tightened in Queensland?
If they need to be tightened and strengthened, of course we will do that. But last year, we tightened up those laws where there was a presumption against bail. We tightened those laws. So there's questions that need to be asked about why those laws weren't adhered to.
Have you spoken to the families at all?
I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the family, but I have passed on to Don Brown, the local member who knows the family, my personal condolences.
Premier, can I ask another question? Troy Accordingly's father is alleging that a brief of evidence has sat with the DPP for a year without being actioned. Can you comment on that?
In relation to?
The death of Troy Accordingly 2 years ago on Dobby Beach.
Oh, look, I'm not aware of that. That's a matter for the DPP, so I'm happy to follow that up with the Attorney General. Thank you. Yeah. All right.
Just from the Sunshine Coast, the
Yes.
LNP is holding a planning meeting today. Christopher Lee has been in town most of the week. Why do you think that is?
Well, let me say, look, it's great to see that the LNP are spending some time on the Sunshine Coast. We made some inroads into the Sunshine Coast at the most recent election. Once again, our focus is on keeping Queenslanders safe. But I always, look back to the 3 years that they were in office and David was actually a minister. Not much happened on the Sunshine Coast, so maybe they need to have a big internal look at what went wrong on the Sunshine Coast. And I love the Sunshine Coast. A lot of infrastructure. We're open brand new schools there for the start of the school year. It's wonderful to see the investment, the road infrastructure. You only have to drive up that Bruce Highway to see how much infrastructure is going up there with the upgrading of the roads. And my government is committed to the Sunshine Coast. Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you at the school. Okay, thank you. Yeah, overlay guys, if you want them to do a water shot. Yeah.
What would they want there?